Oh my god, this episode was amazing. But before we talk about that, let's recap what happened last Sunday. Now, as you know, last Sunday, Carl sneaks into Negan's camp. He kills 3 of his guys with an awesome looking machine gun. And oddly enough, Negan lets him live right afterwards. He shows him around his camp, shows him how the Saviors operate, and also kind of shows him how, Negan is kind of cool, or at least how cool Negan thinks he is. And towards the end of the episode, Negan returns Carl back to Alexandria and makes himself at home in Rick's place. All the while terrorizing everybody in Alexandria, especially Olivia. He seems to really have it out for her. Then we get this really creepy fatherly vibe throughout the entire episode between him and Carl, and then him and Judith towards the end. It gets really crazy. But anyways, let's talk about the mid-season finale. The episode is the mid-season finale, so they had to do it big. Not only do we get to see the return of Rick, we are also greeted with 2 deaths in the episode, which we will talk about shortly. But what the highlights of the episode is that Rick finds his manhood again. That's right, he found it. Not that Negan gave it back to him, they were just rolled under some table and he just picked them up and inserted them back into him. Maggie herself is as strong as ever, and she seems to be taking care, or at least taking control slowly, of the Hilltop community. Which she does notice that it makes Gregory, the current leader of Hilltop, very nervous. Because, as people begin to talk and say good things about her, his power, his control is starting to dwindle just a bit. And this is a very tense time right now. So, also on top of that, we also get to see Carol and Morgan again. That's right, we don't get to see the Kingdom again, and I think this season the Kingdom has really become my favorite place. I've really wanted to see that more, and I feel like it should have been showcased more in at least this half of the season since we've been there only once. So, but anyways, Carol and Morgan are having this really awkward discussion with Richard, who's I guess I call him the captain of the guards for King Ezekiel. He's like King Ezekiel's right-hand man, and the discussion itself is really about fighting the Saviors, which seems like that is not what King Ezekiel wants, but he tries to convince Morgan and Carol to talk to Ezekiel about it. Overall, this episode is a turning point for the season, and it's not a drop-off as what I thought it was going to be. This is actually a freaking launch pad. This episode roughly features everyone, and I know for sure that I won't be able to touch up on half the things that I would like to, so I'm going to try to talk about at least some of the major players in this episode. The first person I want to talk about is Rick. Now, Rick, like I said before, has rediscovered himself as who he is. It's almost kind of like that scene in a particular cartoon movie where the king of the jungle kind of like forgets who he is, runs away from home after his dad dies, and then he sees his dad in the clouds, and his dad asks him to remember who he is, and then that's what happens. I'm not going to get sued, I promise. And so, so that kind of happens for Rick. He kind of rediscovers himself. It took, actually, his buddy Aaron to actually get his ass literally handed to him by a couple of Negan's boys, but he kind of just like really came into himself, and he was really pushing really hard for that houseboat that we saw at the end of last Sunday's episode, or the Sunday before last episode. And at the start of this one, they actually managed to get on board. They find some good supplies, some much needed stuff, some guns, but no ammo. And it's pretty cool to actually see that Rick is doing the things that he needs to do. Kind of like what we saw a couple of seasons ago. Rick is like a survivor now. He's not kind of moping about. He's not sulking. And he's just really moved on, and he's becoming a different person. And that's the point I like about Rick, is that Rick is a fighter. He doesn't give up. He understands how things are and how they can eventually change. It's just a matter of time. And I have to really, I make fun of Rick, but Rick is really a strong leader. It just takes someone to knock him down just a bit, and then he gets back on that horse and he just redoes everything that he's supposed to do. Everything that got him up to this point, he wants forgiveness from it, and then he moves on and makes it better. So hopefully meeting Negan really changed Rick's perspective on at least life in general. So let's talk about Negan. Negan was featured in this episode as well, just like he was in the Sunday before last. And there's this weird suburbanite persona to Negan in this episode. Like, he seems to enjoy living among houses and having AC, running water, all those kind of things. He loves it. I mean, to the point to where he's thinking of making this a vacation spot for him. You know, like a guy like him needs a vacation spot. I mean, he can just cozy up anywhere he wants, and that's his vacation spot. But anyways, Negan goes around and he just starts, I mean, pretty much moving in. He cooks. It's kind of funny to see. He cooks dinner for Carl, Olivia, and Judith. He's just sitting there having a good meal. You know, there's this like sweet side to him, and then when something doesn't go in a way that he likes, or if something just doesn't happen the way he has planned out, he turns into this complete psychopath. And I think we really got to see that when they're sitting at the dinner table and Rick hasn't shown up yet, and Negan is waiting for him. He doesn't want to be wasting too much time. And then eventually, you know, he just looks to Carl and just like in this weird menacing way and just says, "Pass the rolls," after Rick doesn't show up. But it's the little things, you know. And of course, towards the end of the episode, but I don't really want to talk about that just yet. But overall, Negan is really, we really see him come apart in this episode, because towards the end of the episode, Rosita actually takes a crack shot at him with that single bullet that she wanted Eugene to make, which he does, and she ends up hitting Lucille, and Negan just freaks out. I mean, not on just I think it had to do with the fact that he came close to death, and he's never actually had anyone oppose him in that manner. I think that's the funny thing about it, is that he panicked more at the fact that she shot at him than anything else. Because normally we've seen Negan face other people and he has like no fear whatsoever, but then when this happened, when he was so close to death, he just like completely snaps, and it's freaking crazy. And so I think he has never really had to deal with anybody like this who could be so dangerous to his livelihood. And I think that's like his weakness in a way, that he's never been opposed before, and now that he's getting opposition, it's a big problem. And he's getting strong opposition, someone who can actually threaten his status among the apocalyptic world, as it were. Now, the other character that I want to talk about, or at least I'm going to group them together, is Eugene, Rosita, and Father Gabriel. Again, we start to see Father Gabriel start to really show his priestly self, as it were. So let's talk about Father Gabriel, because he's actually kind of like the smallest part. But after Rosita comes back from making this bullet, and she's talking to Father Gabriel about, I guess this is like her confession time, and she wants to get everything off her chest and let Father Gabriel know what she plans on doing. Father Gabriel kind of just like talks to her out of it and explains to her that, you know what, things are going to get better. You just have to let them happen. Things are just out of our control, and what's the point in dying if you're not going to be around to see the fruits of your labor? What's the point of that? And when we can eventually work together and stop what's going to happen. That's the thing. The key to us is working together. And I think that's the funny thing about Father Gabriel, is that he's realizing his place, his role within the group. He is the voice of reason. Because Morgan's not around. Morgan was the voice of reason for Rick, but Rick wasn't really listening to Morgan, and I guess that's why Morgan left. But Father Gabriel has kind of like embedded himself into the group with the newcomers and everybody else, and he's taking on his priestly roles. He is talking to people. He is engaging in people, and I think that's the best thing that the group needs. And I'm hoping that we don't see an end to this, because since Father Gabriel is really coming into his own as a character, I would hate for the writers to rub him out but in a fight scene between him and the Saviors, or a zombie gets him. The next person is going to be Eugene. Eugene has really, I gotta say, he's been really pissing me off lately as a character. I know that it's tough when you lose somebody, but the thing is that it's been a week since their death. If my timeline is correct, if my calculation of time from the episode, I think roughly, I know I said a couple episodes back it was like 3 days after Glenn and Abraham's death. I think this is roughly a week now. So it's been a week since Abraham's death, and he's still on this kick. And granted, yes, Rosita last episode really tore him a new one and really made fun of him and bullied him, and it was just really bad. But the thing is that he has really been pissing me off, and the fact that I know that he's a stronger character than that, and I think he knows that he's stronger. He just doesn't want to show it, probably out of fear or for whatever the case may be. But the thing is that he really does surprise me towards the end of the episode, right after Negan's attempted assassination, when he comes out and says, "Hey, I made the bullet," and Negan takes Eugene away. Now I'm hoping that Eugene will be okay, because I like Eugene, and I think that's the only reason why I get so mad at the fact that his character gets treated in such a way. So. But anyways, so let's talk about Rosita. Rosita is going to be the last person I'm going to talk about, and well, what can I say about Rosita? She's tough, she's fiery, she's Latina, she's everything. And the whole thing is that she doesn't need anyone telling her what to do. I mean, this woman sets her mind to something, she plans on doing it. Now, granted, she is talked out of it, and it takes an event for her to actually attempt to assassinate Negan, but the whole thing is that she eventually realizes her mistake towards the end, and she realizes her mistakes, period, the way that she's treated certain people in the group, and she really tries really hard to make amends and try to get back to normal, but it really stuck with her towards the end of the episode, to where she actually loses it and she attempts to shoot Negan, and then next thing you know, we have Eugene being dragged away. It's just crazy. It's I mean, but we're gonna see a stronger Rosita coming out of this. She's going to want to save Eugene. She's going to want to get vengeance for all of everything that happened just now, and she'll probably get it. Now I'm hoping she doesn't pull the trigger on Negan, because that would be, I think that would be, it would be unfair to the fans of The Walking Dead. I really think, and I really do feel, that Maggie is the one who needs to get it. She's the one that has, I think, in my opinion, suffered more, but I guess that's neither here nor there. The episode itself features everyone. And so starting off, Negan has made himself at home in Alexandria and is just loving the whole suburbia feel. And Spencer and Rosita come back with Eugene. That's where we left off from the last episode. Spencer has come to think that Negan can be reasoned with, and starts the whole diplomatic process with him by offering him some alcohol, has himself a sit down, and starts talking all about politics and Alexandria, Rick, and everything else. Rick and Aaron get to the boathouse, and they start taking all of the supplies that they find there. They find guns, ammo, well, actually no. They find guns, food, and all sorts of things. Just very little ammo. Now, they're able to take all that stuff, bring it back, but in the woods, off into the distance, we don't see, but someone is actually spying on Rick and Aaron with binoculars. We actually don't see their face, but we do know that they're there. Now, Michonne, she has been on the move since Sunday before last, and she's been on her way to Negan's camp to figure out what's going on and where does he live and what can be done about it. She had plans to infiltrate his little base camp, but as they appear over the hill, as she's trying to question this Negan follower, she doesn't really give too much information other than the fact that, you know what, we're bigger, you can just go ahead and turn right around. There's a silencer in the glove box. Go ahead and shoot me, burn this car, and just pretend you never came out this way and just give up, pretty much. So as they go over the hill, they see how big, Michonne actually sees how big Negan's camp is, and she turns around. She does exactly that. Of course, she does take care of her little loose end that she picked up on her way over there. Now we also get to figure out what Daryl is up to at this episode, because Daryl right now, with Negan gone and most of his men on sort of like a relaxed mode right now, Daryl takes this opportunity to escape, and because this is the time. And as he's making his way through, he almost gets caught, but he finds some spare clothes, changes out of him. We really see how much he really loves or misses peanut butter. I mean, he just tore into the jar. I mean, granted, he hasn't been really eating much other than dog food sandwiches, but the idea is that, you know, hey, I mean, I don't love peanut butter as much as he was loving peanut butter at that point in time. But as he's making his way out, trying to get on top of a motorcycle, Fat Joey shows up, and as Fat Joey shows up, man, Daryl sees him, and Joey is just completely useless at this point in time. He came across Daryl, who has been cornered like a wild animal, and Joey's just telling him, like, look, I was doing whatever I could to survive. You must understand that. Daryl doesn't say too much other than, yeah, I get it. So am I. And just, like, gives the pipe. Not that way, but gives the pipe to Joey. And that's the last we see of Fat Joey. And, of course, he picks up Rick's python and starts to head back. When Jesus comes out of the shadows, he says, hey, and takes him back, what we can only assume is Hilltop. But meanwhile, back in Alexandria, Rick and Aaron show up with the supplies that they've gotten and are going through the process of divvying them up between Alexandria and the Saviors. Of course, as they're going through, there's a little note that they discovered while at the boathouse that, said, hey, you may have gotten the supplies, but you still lose, and it had the middle finger on there. Now, it's a little jab at the people who managed to get the supplies, but it is what it is. Well, Negan's followers find this, and they're not exactly all that happy about that. So they honestly think that this is a note that was left from Rick and Aaron, and so they pretty much just beat up on Aaron since Rick is being summoned by Negan, excuse me. So they beat Aaron up for a little bit, and we scoot back to Rosita, who is talking to Father Gabriel, who eventually is talked down to the whole fact that, you know what, you need to live life, and you should give up on this whole idea and wait for the group to make a decision. Because this is what it's all about, is working together. We are family, we're a team, all that other stuff, all that other mushy stuff. And so Rosita actually comes to terms with that, and she forgets her plan to kill Negan for a little bit. While Spencer, the entire while, has been trying to make buddy-buddy with Negan, and begins to start to say, like, you know what, hey, Negan, guess what? Rick is a problem, and it would be in your best interest if you got rid of Negan and I take over Alexandria. This community belonged to my mom before Rick showed up, and then when Rick shows up, my mom dies, my dad dies, and my brother dies. Pretty much just like that. And with that, Negan doesn't like the idea that this is Spencer's whole point of being friendly, all chummy with him. And pretty much to the point to where Negan kind of respects Rick, because Rick is swallowing his hatred that he has for Negan, and basically says, you know what, Rick has guts, you don't, Spencer. And then as he approaches Spencer, he sticks his giant Bowie knife into Spencer and just disembowels him, and he's just like, whoa, there's your guts, they've been inside you this whole time. I have never been so wrong. And it just straight Negan fashion in the way he speaks. And, you know, Spencer eventually succumbs to his wounds and dies right in front of everybody. And right at that moment, Rosita is extremely pissed and taken with the whole fact that she just killed possibly another romantic option for her, because supposedly there was a thing between Spencer and Rosita. I wasn't aware of that, or maybe I just blocked it out because I really just don't like Spencer. But the whole thing was that that's what happened. So Rosita pulls her gun, aims at Negan. We hear it cut to black as she pulls the trigger, and as we come back, we see that Lucille, Negan's bat, takes the bullet for for him, and he just flips his lid. And so he just flips out at the fact that Lucille got shot. But of course, I think it had something more to do with the fact that he was about to be killed. I think that was more of his freak out than anything else like that. And he wanted to figure out who made the bullet, because he examined the bullet that came out of Rosita's gun, and it was makeshift, and nobody was answering the question. Of course, Eugene was there, and he wasn't saying anything. Rosita tried to play it off as it was her. Negan didn't like that whole idea, so he tells his other little underling, Arat, that's her name, Arat, I think, to kill somebody. And she randomly picks somebody, just like really quick in an instant, and it's Olivia. That's right, Olivia, the babysitter that we have seen, and someone who's really come into her own, and someone who's been really picked on by Negan. She ends up taking a bullet to the head. And, I mean, I'm sure it was really quick and painless, and she didn't really suffer when that happened, but it was the fact that this woman who really didn't do anything except take care of the community died. And I think that's where I was really saddened at that point, because to the fact that, she was taking care of Judith, and she was doing everything. She was being really strong up to this point, and she was still strong. And I have a lot of respect for Olivia as a character. The actress who portrayed her, Anne Mahoney, she did a really good job portraying Olivia. So this, after Olivia's death is witnessed by everyone in Alexandria, the whole mood starts to change, and of course Negan is kindly, respectfully told by Rick to his shit is waiting for him at the gate, and you can leave. And Negan, in his way, just says, "All right, Rick, no problem." And it's, I think I'm going to enjoy doing impersonations of the guy, because Negan, I don't know, it's just interesting character alone. But anyways, so by this time, I'm sure they've buried Olivia. He's taken out Spencer, since Spencer comes back as a zombie, and they've done away with their dead already. But the whole thing is, Rick is kind of like in shambles, and Michonne comes back and explains to him, "Hey, look, I've seen Negan's compound. It's more than what we thought it was going to be. It's a lot bigger, but we need to do this together. Anything that we do it together. This is not this whole, I'm going to do my thing, you're going to do your thing. We are stronger together." And it's that power, that whole, like, it's you and me against the rest of the world, and the rest of the world is going to burn because of it. Just because they messed with us. So that's the whole point. She is basically coming to Rick and say, "You know what? You've rediscovered yourself. You've discovered, here are your balls back, man. Take them back. This is who you are." And the following day, they go to the Hilltop community, and there we see Maggie and everyone. And Maggie's all happy because Daryl shows up with Jesus. Everyone's reunited. Daryl is just completely broken to this point, is in tears, hugs Rick. Daryl gives back Rick's python, and now they start to plot their rise. All right, their ascendancy into greatness against Negan, against the Saviors. And it's going to be an amazing mid-season premiere. I can only imagine what they have planned for us, because the preview for the mid-season premiere showed a lot, and it revealed a lot, such as Hilltop and Alexandria and the Kingdom are coming together, which is going to be amazing. It's what I've been wanting, and what I've been wanting to see, because this is just amazing. But at the very end of the episode, Maggie is on the wall from Hilltop, and she's just keeping an eye out on everything. But off into the distance, we see that same individual who's wearing a particular style of boots is spying on the Hilltop community. So who could this person be? We don't know. I can't think of anyone who it could be in the past. I can't think of anyone from the comics so far. But the thing is that we are going to see some interesting development coming up next season. So thank you all for joining me. Let's move on to final thoughts. I don't really have too many ideas or too many thoughts on what it is going to happen, or at least what I think is going to happen. But I'm only left with a couple of questions, like who is this new stranger who is spying on them? We've met an individual who was spying on the group, and that's when they were in the prison. But of course, I think we later figured out that it was the governor. I think. I don't remember. I need to go back and rewatch those episodes. But the whole thing is that we do know that there was the kids were feeding mice to somebody and whatever. But anyways, yeah, that was like seasons ago though. But yeah, who is this new person? What's going to happen when they decide to show themselves? Is it somebody that they've met before? Or what is the case here? Because the whole thing is the wolves haven't been seen for in a while. So maybe this guy's a wolf, not a savior. I don't know. And then you also have on top of that this amazing battle that's going to happen between these camps. And, you know, who's going to come out on top? Clearly, the saviors have a lot of manpower, and it almost seems that these other three communities have very few people that are going to be willing to fight. But I don't know. We'll have to wait and see what happens. But I want to say thank you all for joining me for this wonderful episode. I know it's ran a little bit longer than it should have, but there was just so much to talk about, and I really feel like I didn't even talk about everything that I wanted to talk about. If you want to see another episode about this, or talk on some of the subjects that I didn't reach on, by all means, we can just leave a comment and a like on the video, and if it gets enough likes and enough views on there, then yes, I will go ahead and do a second video. But thanks, guys. I really do appreciate it. I will see you again. Also, don't worry if you want to see more DayZ coming up. I am going to still record DayZ, and I'm still going to play through it, maybe with a little bit more of a narration going for it. All right, guys. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you all later. Take care.